The morning sun cast long shadows across the training grounds at Naval Station Great Lakes, where recruits were pushing through their daily physical conditioning. Among them stood drill instructor Sarah Mitchell, a woman whose presence commanded immediate respect. At 5'6" tall, she wasn't the tallest person on the field, but her posture and unwavering gaze made her seem much larger. What most of the recruits didn't know was that before becoming a drill instructor, Sarah had spent 8 years as a Navy SEAL, one of only a handful of women to have earned that distinction. Sarah had grown up in a small town in Montana, where her father ran a martial arts studio. From the age of 5, she was learning discipline, respect, and the art of self-defense. Her childhood wasn't typical for most girls her age. While her classmates were playing with dolls, Sarah was mastering kicks, throws, and defensive techniques. Her father, a former Marine, believed that everyone should know how to protect themselves, regardless of gender. When Sarah turned 18, she made a decision that surprised everyone except her father. She enlisted in the Navy with one goal in mind: to become a SEAL. The path wasn't easy. She faced skepticism, discrimination, and challenges that would have broken many people. But Sarah had something that couldn't be taught: an unbreakable spirit and the physical and mental toughness that came from years of rigorous training. The SEAL training was brutal. Out of her class of 200 candidates, only 23 graduated. Sarah was the only woman. She excelled in underwater demolition, marksmanship, and close-quarters combat. Her instructors were initially doubtful, but she proved herself time and again. During one particularly challenging exercise, she carried a wounded teammate for 3 miles through difficult terrain while under simulated enemy fire. This is the team back into the daily episode. That day, she earned not just the respect of her peers, but their complete trust. For 8 years, Sarah served in various capacities around the world. She participated in counterterrorism operations, hostage rescues, and intelligence-gathering missions. Her specialty was close-quarters combat and hostage negotiation. She had a unique ability to remain calm under pressure and make split-second decisions that often meant the difference between life and death for her team and the people they were trying to save.
But after 8 years of active duty, Sarah felt a calling to serve in a different way.
She wanted to shape the next generation of Navy personnel, to instill in them the discipline, respect, and dedication that had served her so well.
Becoming a drill instructor seemed like the perfect transition.
She could use her experience and skills to prepare young recruits for the challenges they would face in their military careers. The transition from SEAL to drill instructor wasn't without its challenges. Some of her fellow instructors questioned whether someone with her background could relate to regular recruits. Others wondered if she would be too intense or demanding. But Sarah quickly proved that she had the perfect balance of toughness and understanding that made an excellent instructor. She had been serving as a drill instructor for 2 years when she encountered recruit Marcus Thompson. Marcus was different from the other recruits in ways that immediately set off alarm bells for Sarah. He was 22 years old, significantly older than most recruits, and had joined the Navy after what he claimed was a change of heart about his life direction. But there was something in his eyes that didn't match his words. Marcus came from a wealthy family in California. His father was a successful businessman who had built an empire in real estate development. Marcus had grown up with every advantage money could buy, but he had also grown up with a sense of entitlement that his parents had never bothered to correct. In high school and college, he had been involved in several incidents that his father's money and lawyers had made disappear. There were allegations of harassment, bullying, and worse, but nothing had ever stuck. When Marcus decided to join the Navy, it wasn't out of patriotism or a desire to serve his country. He had gotten into serious trouble with the law, and his father's lawyer had suggested that military service might look good to a judge. Marcus saw it as a temporary inconvenience, something he could endure for a few years before returning to his comfortable life. From the first day of training, Marcus showed a complete lack of respect for authority, particularly female authority. He made inappropriate comments, refused to follow orders when they came from women, and generally acted as though the rules didn't apply to him. Other drill instructors had tried to correct his behavior, but Marcus had a way of towing the line just enough to avoid serious consequences. Sarah had been watching Marcus for weeks, documenting his behavior and looking for the right opportunity to address his attitude problem.
She knew that recruits like Marcus could be toxic to unit cohesion and morale. If not corrected early, they could influence other recruits and create a culture of disrespect that would be difficult to eliminate.
The confrontation came on a Tuesday morning during physical training. The recruits were going through a series of exercises designed to build teamwork and trust. Marcus was paired with a female recruit named Jennifer Walsh, a young woman from Texas who had joined the Navy to follow in her brother's footsteps. Jennifer was one of the most dedicated and hardworking recruits in the company, but she was also relatively small and sometimes struggled with the physical demands of training.
As Jennifer attempted to complete a rope climbing exercise, Marcus made a series of loud, inappropriate comments about her abilities and her gender.
The comments were crude and demeaning, and they were clearly intended to humiliate Jennifer in front of the other recruits. Sarah could see the tears forming in Jennifer's eyes, but she could also see the young woman's determination not to give up. Sarah approached Marcus calmly but firmly. "Recruit Thompson," she said in her command voice, "you will apologize to Recruit Walsh immediately and then drop and give me 50 push-ups." Marcus turned to face Sarah with a smirk on his face. "I don't think so," he said loudly enough for other recruits to hear. "I don't take orders from women, especially not some wannabe tough girl who probably only got through SEAL training because they lowered the standards." The training ground went completely silent. Every recruit and instructor within earshot stopped what they were doing and turned to watch what would happen next.
Sarah felt the familiar calm that had served her well in combat situations descending over her.
She had faced enemy combatants, terrorists, and life-threatening situations, but she had never encountered such blatant disrespect in a military setting. "Recruit Thompson," Sarah said, her voice still calm but with an edge that made several nearby recruits take a step back. "You have exactly 5 seconds to reconsider your position and follow my direct order." Marcus's smirk grew wider. He had clearly decided that this was his moment to make a statement about what he thought of female authority. "Or what?" he said, taking a step closer to Sarah.
What are you going to do about it?
What happened next would be replayed millions of times across social media platforms and would fundamentally change how people thought about women in combat roles. But in that moment, as Marcus made his choice to escalate the confrontation, Sarah was simply a professional military instructor dealing with a recruit who had crossed a line that should never be crossed.
Marcus lunged forward, clearly intending to physically intimidate Sarah or worse. He was bigger than her, probably outweighed her by 60 pounds, and had the confidence that came from a lifetime of using his size and privilege to get his way. But he had made a critical error in judgment. He had assumed that because Sarah was a woman, she would be easy to intimidate or overpower.
The moment Marcus made his move, Sarah's training kicked in. Years of SEAL conditioning and combat experience took over, and she responded with the precision and efficiency that had kept her alive in some of the world's most dangerous places.
What Marcus had intended as an attack became a teaching moment that would be viewed by millions of people and would change the conversation about women in the military forever. The incident lasted less than 10 seconds, but those 10 seconds contained a lifetime of training, discipline, and skill. Sarah didn't just defend herself. She demonstrated why she had earned her place among the elite warriors of the Navy SEALs. And unknown to either Sarah or Marcus, several recruits had their phones out and were recording what they thought would be a routine training exercise. By the end of the day, the video would be spreading across the internet. By the end of the week, it would have millions of views. And by the end of the month, it would spark a national conversation about respect, military training, and the capabilities of women in combat roles. But none of that mattered in the moment when Marcus made his choice to attack a drill instructor who happened to be one of the most highly trained warriors in the United States military.
As Marcus launched himself forward, Sarah's mind automatically shifted into the tactical mode that had served her so well during her SEAL years.
She assessed the threat, calculated her response, and prepared to demonstrate why respect in the military isn't just a courtesy, but a necessity for survival and unit cohesion. The confrontation was about to become a lesson that would extend far beyond the training grounds of Naval Station Great Lakes.
The moment Marcus Thompson committed to his attack, time seemed to slow down for Sarah Mitchell. This wasn't the first time she had experienced this phenomenon.
During her SEAL missions, particularly in high-stress combat situations, her mind would enter a state of hyper-awareness where everything became crystal clear and her body moved with practiced precision. As Marcus lunged forward, Sarah's eyes quickly assessed his approach.
He was coming in high and to her right, his right hand drawn back as if preparing to throw a punch. His movement was clumsy and telegraphed, the kind of aggressive but undisciplined attack she might expect from someone who had relied on intimidation rather than skill throughout his life. In that split second, Sarah's training took over completely. Years of close-quarters combat training had taught Sarah that the key to neutralizing a larger opponent wasn't to meet force with force, but to use their momentum and aggression against them. She had practiced these techniques thousands of times, first in her father's martial arts studio, then during SEAL training, and later in real-world combat situations where her life and the lives of her teammates depended on her ability to react quickly and effectively. Sarah stepped slightly to her left, just enough to avoid Marcus's initial charge while positioning herself for a counterattack. As he passed by her, she grabbed his extended right arm with both hands, using his forward momentum to pull him off balance.
The technique was called a irimi nage in Aikido, a throwing technique that redirected an attacker's energy rather than opposing it directly. Marcus, expecting to make contact with Sarah, instead found himself being pulled forward and down.
His feet scrambled to maintain balance, but Sarah's grip on his arm and her precise footwork made it impossible for him to recover. In one smooth motion, she guided him down to the ground, where he landed hard on his back with Sarah maintaining control of his arm.
The entire sequence took less than 3 seconds, but it was only the beginning. Marcus, shocked by what had just happened, attempted to get back to his feet.
This was his second mistake. Instead of staying down and accepting that he had been outmatched, he chose to escalate the confrontation further.
As Marcus tried to rise, Sarah made a quick decision. This wasn't just about stopping one disrespectful recruit anymore.
She realized that every other recruit was watching, and how she handled this situation would set the tone for her authority and the respect that all female instructors deserved. She needed to make it clear that attacking an instructor, male or female, was absolutely unacceptable and would result in immediate and decisive consequences.
Using a technique she had learned during prisoner control training, Sarah maintained her grip on Marcus's arm while positioning herself to apply what's known as a compliance hold. She twisted his arm behind his back in a way that caused immediate discomfort, without causing permanent injury. The technique was designed to control a subject while minimizing the risk of serious harm.
Marcus let out a yelp of pain and surprise.
"Let go of me!" he shouted, his voice cracking with the realization that his attempt to intimidate Sarah had backfired spectacularly.
This is assault. You can't do this." Sarah's response was calm and professional, her voice carrying clearly across the training ground so that every recruit could hear her words.
"Recruit Thompson, you initiated physical contact with the drill instructor. I am responding with appropriate force to neutralize a threat and maintain order.
You will remain still and comply with instructions."
But Marcus wasn't finished making bad decisions.
Instead of complying, he attempted to twist out of Sarah's hold and swing at her with his free arm. This was his third and most serious mistake. By continuing to resist and attempt to strike an instructor, he had escalated what could have been a simple disciplinary matter into a serious assault charge. Sarah's response to Marcus's continued aggression demonstrated why SEAL training was considered among the most comprehensive combat preparation in the world.
Jules died. Jules died.
She smoothly transitioned from the compliance hold to a more controlling position, using a technique known as a rear naked choke to temporarily restrict blood flow to Marcus's brain. The technique, when properly applied, renders someone unconscious in seconds without causing permanent harm.
As Sarah applied the chokehold, she spoke in a calm, instructional tone that made it clear she was in complete control of the situation.
This is a blood choke, Recruit Thompson.
If you continue to resist, you will lose consciousness in approximately 10 seconds. I recommend you stop struggling and submit.
Marcus's eyes went wide as he realized the seriousness of his situation. He could feel his vision starting to tunnel, and his body's survival instincts finally overcame his pride and aggression.
He tapped frantically on Sarah's arm, the universal signal for submission in martial arts and combat training. Sarah immediately released the hold, allowing Marcus to breathe normally, while maintaining a position that would allow her to quickly reapply control if necessary.
Marcus gasped for air, his face red from the restricted blood flow, but he was clearly no longer interested in continuing the fight. The entire confrontation, from Marcus's initial lunge to his submission, had lasted less than 15 seconds.
But those 15 seconds had been recorded by several recruits who had pulled out their phones, initially thinking they were about to witness a drill instructor being assaulted by a disrespectful recruit. Instead, they had captured footage of a masterclass in professional defensive tactics. Recruit Jennifer Walsh, the young woman whose honor Sarah had been defending, stood with her mouth open in amazement. She had never seen anything like the display of skill and control she had just witnessed. Around the training ground, other recruits were equally stunned. Many of them had heard rumors about Sarah's SEAL background, but seeing her skills demonstrated in person was something entirely different.
One of the recruits recording the incident was David Chen, a 20-year-old from California, who had joined the Navy to pursue a career in information technology.
David had been bullied throughout high school because of his small size and quiet nature, and he had been particularly impressed by Sarah's no-nonsense approach to training.
As he watched her handle Marcus with such professional efficiency, he felt a surge of admiration for the drill instructor, who had just demonstrated that skill and training mattered more than size or aggression. David's video, shot from about 20 feet away, captured the entire incident in high definition.
The footage showed Marcus's initial disrespectful comments, his decision to attack Sarah, and her textbook defensive response.
But more importantly, it captured the professionalism and restraint Sarah showed throughout the encounter.
Even when defending herself, she used only the minimum force necessary to control the situation and protect herself and others. Other instructors began arriving on the scene, drawn by the commotion and the unusual silence that had fallen over the training ground.
Senior drill instructor Mike Rodriguez, a veteran with 25 years of service, quickly assessed the situation and took charge of the aftermath. All recruits except Thompson returned to your previous training exercises. Rodriguez commanded.
This incident is now under investigation, and anyone who recorded video will report to my office immediately after training.
As the other recruits reluctantly returned to their exercises, Sarah helped Marcus to his feet.
Despite what had just happened, she maintained her professional demeanor and ensured that he was not injured before turning him over to Rodriguez and the other instructors who would handle the disciplinary proceedings. Marcus, still shaken from the encounter, looked around desperately as if seeking support or sympathy from his fellow recruits.
Instead, he found himself facing a group of young men and women who had just witnessed him attack a female instructor and get decisively defeated. The respect and fear he had hoped to inspire through intimidation had instead been replaced by contempt and embarrassment.
As Marcus was led away for medical evaluation and disciplinary processing, Sarah took a moment to address the recruits who had witnessed the incident. Her words would later become part of the viral video that spread across social media platforms worldwide.
Let me be clear about what just happened here. Sarah said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had earned her position through years of dedicated service and sacrifice. Recruit Thompson made a choice to disrespect a fellow service member and then compound that mistake by initiating physical violence against an instructor.
This is the end of this day. I promise you to write a book. There are 4 Cs on Milo that Don's laboratory and before properties, and then compound that mistake by initiating physical violence against an instructor.
His actions were unacceptable, unprofessional, and have no place in the United States Navy. She paused, looking around at the faces of the recruits who were hanging on her every word.
In the military, we depend on each other for our lives and the success of our missions. Respect isn't just a courtesy. It's a requirement for survival and effectiveness.
When you disrespect your fellow service members, especially those in positions of authority and responsibility, you undermine unit cohesion and put everyone at risk.
Jennifer Walsh, the recruit whose defense had started the entire incident, raised her hand tentatively.
Ma'am, thank you for standing up for me. I wasn't sure how to handle what he was saying.
Sarah nodded approvingly.
Recruit Walsh, you handled the situation correctly by continuing to focus on your training and not allowing his comments to derail your performance. However, I want all of you to understand that harassment and disrespect will not be tolerated in this command, regardless of who it comes from or who it's directed toward.
Unknown to Sarah, David Chen had resumed recording after the main incident was over, capturing her address to the recruits. This additional footage would become almost as important as the initial confrontation video, as it demonstrated not just Sarah's physical capabilities, but her leadership skills and commitment to maintaining a professional, respectful environment for all service members. The impact of what had just transpired would extend far beyond the training grounds of Naval Station Great Lakes.
Within hours, David's video would be uploaded to multiple social media platforms. Within days, it would have millions of views and would spark conversations about military training, women in combat roles, and the importance of respect in professional environments.
But for now, Sarah simply focused on returning her recruits to their training schedule and ensuring that the day's lessons continued despite the dramatic interruption. She had handled the situation exactly as her training had prepared her to do, with skill, professionalism, and the minimum force necessary to maintain order and protect herself and others.
The fact that her response had been captured on video and would soon inspire millions of people was simply an unexpected consequence of doing her job the way she had been trained to do it. David Chen sat in his barracks that evening, staring at his phone with a mixture of excitement and uncertainty.
The video he had captured during the day's training incident was unlike anything he had ever recorded. He had originally pulled out his phone thinking he might witness a drill instructor being assaulted, but instead he had captured something extraordinary.
A masterclass in professional defensive tactics and military bearing.
The footage was crystal clear. His hands had remained steady throughout the incident, and he had been positioned at the perfect angle to capture the entire confrontation. The video showed Marcus Thompson's disrespectful behavior, his decision to attack drill instructor Mitchell, and her textbook response that had left the much larger man controlled and subdued within seconds. David had initially planned to share the video with his family back in California, wanting to show them what military training was really like. His parents had been worried about him joining the Navy,
concerned that their quiet, bookish son wouldn't be able to handle the physical and mental demands of military service. The video of drill instructor Mitchell's incredible display of skill and professionalism would demonstrate that the military was exactly where David needed to be to learn discipline, confidence, and strength.
But as David watched the footage again, he realized it was much more than just a personal training anecdote. This was a powerful demonstration of what women in the military were capable of achieving.
Throughout his life, David had been inspired by stories of underdogs overcoming larger, more aggressive opponents through skill and preparation rather than brute force. Sarah Mitchell's handling of Marcus Thompson was a perfect example of that principle in action. After much consideration, David decided to upload the video to TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube simultaneously. He crafted a simple caption: "Disrespectful recruit attacks female drill instructor with Navy SEAL training. Watch what happens next." Respect to all our military instructors who deal with this nonsense while preparing us to serve our country.
Within 30 minutes of posting, the video had received over 1,000 views and dozens of comments. David's phone began buzzing constantly with notifications.
As shares, likes, and comments poured in,
By the time he went to bed 3 hours later, the video had surpassed 50,000 views across all platforms. But David's video wasn't the only footage of the incident circulating online.
3 other recruits had also captured portions of the confrontation from different angles, and they too had decided to share their recordings.
Jennifer Walsh's roommate, Maria Santos, had been particularly outraged by Marcus's treatment of her friend and had uploaded her footage with a caption highlighting the harassment that had preceded the physical altercation. The multiple camera angles created a complete picture of the incident that made it impossible for anyone to misinterpret what had happened. There was clear footage of Marcus's inappropriate comments, his refusal to follow orders, his decision to attack Sarah, and her professional, measured response. The videos also captured the aftermath, including Sarah's address to the recruits about respect and professionalism.
By morning, the combined videos had reached over 500,000 views. The story was beginning to be picked up by military news websites and social media accounts dedicated to showcasing military training and capabilities. Comments were pouring in from current and former service members, martial arts practitioners, and civilians who were amazed by Sarah's skill and professionalism. One of the most popular comments came from a retired Navy SEAL named Robert Hawk Harrison, who had served with Sarah during her time in the teams.
His comment, which quickly received thousands of likes, read, "Sarah Mitchell is one of the most professional warriors I've ever had the privilege of serving alongside. This video shows exactly why she earned her place in the SEAL community and why she's an outstanding instructor."
Respect and discipline aren't suggestions in the military, they're requirements. The video caught the attention of major news outlets when it reached 2 million views within 48 hours.
A producer at CNN Military Affairs Desk saw the footage and immediately recognized its significance.
In an era of ongoing debates about women in combat roles and military training standards, here was compelling evidence of a female instructor handling a challenging situation with exactly the kind of skill and professionalism the military demanded. Sarah herself remained unaware of the video's viral status until her commanding officer, Captain Lisa Rodriguez, called her into her office on Thursday morning.
Captain Rodriguez had been fielding phone calls from reporters, military analysts, and social media managers all morning, all asking about the incident and requesting interviews with drill instructor Mitchell.
"Sarah," Captain Rodriguez began, "I need you to sit down for this conversation."
That incident on Tuesday with recruit Thompson has become something of an internet sensation. Captain Rodriguez turned her computer monitor towards Sarah and played David Chen's video. Sarah watched herself in action for the first time, seeing the incident from the perspective of the recruits who had witnessed it. She was struck by how quick and decisive her response had been, and how professional she had remained throughout the encounter.
This video has been viewed over 3 million times in the past 2 days, Captain Rodriguez continued. The response has been overwhelmingly positive.
People are praising your professionalism, your skill, and your handling of a difficult situation.
But there are also some concerns about operational security and the image of military training that's being presented to the public.
Sarah felt a mix of emotions as she processed this information. On one hand, she was proud that her response to Marcus's aggression had been professional and appropriate. She had handled the situation exactly as she had been trained to do, using minimum necessary force while maintaining control and protecting herself and others.
On the other hand, she was concerned about the attention the video was bringing to her personally and to the military in general. Sarah had always been a private person who preferred to let her work speak for itself.
The idea of being in the spotlight made her uncomfortable, especially when it might draw unwanted scrutiny to military training methods and procedures.
"Ma'am," Sarah said carefully,
I want to be clear that I responded to Recruit Thompson's aggression using appropriate defensive tactics.
I used only the minimum force necessary to control the situation and protect myself and others. My actions were entirely within regulations and military training protocols.
Captain Rodriguez smiled. Sarah, you don't need to defend your actions. Your response was textbook perfect, and everyone who has reviewed the incident agrees that you handled it exactly correctly.
The question now is how we handle the media attention this has generated. Meanwhile, the video continued to spread across social media platforms.
It had been shared by military appreciation accounts, martial arts communities, and feminist groups, who saw it as a powerful example of female empowerment and professional competence. The hashtags #RespectOurInstructors, #WomenInMilitary, and #SEALSkills began trending on Twitter and Instagram. The story was picked up by major television networks when former SEAL officers began appearing on talk shows to discuss the video. Admiral Patricia Hughes, one of the highest-ranking women in naval history, appeared on ABC News to praise Sarah's response and use it as an example of why women belonged in all military roles, including combat positions.
What you see in this video is exactly the kind of professional competence and situational awareness that makes our military the finest in the world, Admiral Hughes explained to the television audience. Drill instructor Mitchell demonstrated not just technical skill, but the judgment and restraint that are hallmarks of elite military training. This is what we want all our service members to aspire to, regardless of gender.
The video also sparked important conversations in military training communities about respect, professionalism, and the challenges faced by female instructors. Many current and former female service members shared their own stories of dealing with disrespectful behavior and how they had learned to command respect through competence and professionalism.
One particularly impactful response came from Master Sergeant Angela Davis, a Marine drill instructor with 15 years of experience. She posted a video response that received over 1 million views, in which she discussed the daily challenges faced by female instructors and the importance of maintaining professional standards.
What drill instructor Mitchell did isn't unusual for those of us who have earned our positions through years of training and dedication, Master Sergeant Davis explained. What's unusual is that someone captured it on video and showed the world what we deal with and how we handle it. Every female instructor has had to prove herself over and over again, and we do it through competence, professionalism, and exactly the kind of skilled response you see in this video.
The positive response to the video also led to increased interest in military recruitment, particularly among young women who saw Sarah's example as proof that they could succeed in military careers.
Recruitment offices across the country reported increased inquiries about military service, with many potential recruits specifically mentioning the viral video as inspiration for their interest.
Doctors?
Jennifer Martinez, a sociology professor at Georgetown University who specialized in military culture, was interviewed by several news outlets about the video's significance. She explained that the footage represented a turning point in public perception of women in military roles. For decades, debates about women in combat and leadership positions have been largely theoretical, Dr. Martinez observed.
This video provides concrete evidence of the professional competence and situational awareness that female service members bring to their roles. It's not about politics or ideology. It's about demonstrating actual capability under pressure.
The video's impact extended beyond military circles. Self-defense instructors began using it as a teaching tool to demonstrate proper defensive techniques and the importance of remaining calm under pressure.
Martial arts schools reported increased enrollment, particularly among women who were inspired by Sarah's example. Corporate training programs began incorporating discussions of the video into their workplace respect and professional conduct seminars.
The footage became a powerful example of how to maintain professionalism while firmly establishing boundaries and dealing with inappropriate behavior in professional settings. As the video continued to gain views and generate discussion, Sarah found herself at the center of a national conversation about military training, women's capabilities, and professional conduct.
While she remained focused on her duties as a drill instructor, she began to understand that her response to Marcus Thompson had become much more than just a training ground incident. It had become a symbol of professional competence, female empowerment, and the importance of respect in all professional environments. The viral nature of the video also meant that Marcus Thompson's behavior and its consequences were being seen by millions of people.
His attempt to intimidate and disrespect a female instructor had backfired in the most public way possible, serving as a powerful deterrent to anyone who might consider similar behavior in the future. The video had become an object lesson in the consequences of disrespect and the importance of recognizing competence regardless of gender.
3 weeks after the incident, Sarah Mitchell found herself sitting in a television studio in Chicago, preparing for what would become one of the most watched military-related interviews in recent history. The video of her encounter with Marcus Thompson had now been viewed over 50 million times across all platforms, and the story had evolved into a national conversation about respect, military training, and women's roles in the armed forces. The interview was being conducted by veteran journalist Maria Rodriguez for 60 Minutes, the flagship investigative news program that had decided to explore the broader implications of what had started as a simple training ground confrontation. Sarah had initially declined multiple interview requests, preferring to maintain her privacy and focus on her duties as a drill instructor.
However, her commanding officers had eventually convinced her that speaking publicly could help address some of the misconceptions and debates that had emerged around the incident. As Sarah sat in the studio, she reflected on how dramatically her life had changed in just 3 weeks.
Her phone received hundreds of messages daily from supporters, military personnel sharing their own stories, and young women asking for advice about military careers. She had been invited to speak at military academies, women's leadership conferences, and self-defense seminars.
Publishers had reached out about writing a book, and several documentary filmmakers wanted to tell her story. But perhaps most significantly, the incident had led to important policy discussions within the Department of Defense about training protocols, respect in military environments, and how to better address harassment and inappropriate behavior in training settings. Sarah's professional response had become a case study that was being incorporated into instructor training programs across all branches of the military.
Maria Rodriguez began the interview by asking Sarah to describe what was going through her mind during the confrontation with Marcus Thompson. Sarah's response was characteristically thoughtful and professional.
"In that moment, I wasn't thinking about gender politics or making a statement," Sarah explained. "I was thinking about maintaining order and safety in a training environment." Recruit Thompson had made a choice to escalate a situation inappropriately, and I responded using the minimum force necessary to control that situation and protect everyone involved. The interview covered Sarah's background, from her childhood martial arts training through her SEAL service and her transition to becoming a drill instructor. Sarah spoke eloquently about the challenges she had faced as a woman in military roles, but she was careful to emphasize that her success came from the same dedication, training, and professionalism that any successful military member needed to demonstrate. "The military doesn't care about your gender when bullets are flying or when lives are on the line," Sarah said.
"It cares about your ability to perform your duties effectively and professionally. That's what I've tried to do throughout my career, and that's what I was doing on the day this incident occurred."
The interview also addressed the broader cultural impact the video had generated. Sarah acknowledged that she had been surprised by the response, but was glad if her example could inspire others to pursue military careers or simply to stand up for themselves in difficult situations. If young women see this video and realize that they can be strong, capable, and professional while still being feminine and compassionate, then something positive has come from what was essentially just me doing my job, Sarah reflected. Meanwhile, Marcus Thompson was dealing with the consequences of his actions in a very different way. Following the incident, he had been subject to military justice proceedings that resulted in his discharge from the Navy. Then, they had access to the Navy Sanitary Cafe of the viral video had made him recognizable to millions of people, and not in the way he had hoped when he initially decided to challenge Sarah's authority.
Marcus had returned to California, where he found that his actions had followed him into civilian life.
Potential employers who Googled his name immediately found the video and the associated news coverage. His family, particularly his father, were dealing with the embarrassment and negative publicity generated by his behavior. In a brief statement released through his lawyer, Marcus had apologized for his actions and acknowledged that his behavior was inappropriate and unprofessional. However, the apology rang hollow to many people who had seen the video and witnessed not just his attack on Sarah, but his initial disrespectful treatment of Jennifer Walsh and his general attitude of entitlement.
The incident had also led to positive changes in military training protocols. The Department of Defense had implemented new policies requiring enhanced training for drill instructors on dealing with harassment and inappropriate behavior.
Additionally, new recruits now received expanded orientation on respect, professionalism, and the consequences of inappropriate conduct. Jennifer Walsh, the recruit whose defense had initiated the entire incident, had thrived in her training following the confrontation. She later credited Sarah's intervention and example with giving her the confidence to complete her training successfully and pursue a career in military intelligence. Jennifer had become something of a symbol herself, representing the kind of dedicated service member that military training was designed to produce. Seeing drill instructor Mitchell handle that situation showed me what real strength and professionalism look like, Jennifer explained in her own interview with a military publication. "She didn't just defend me, she showed me what it means to be a strong woman in the military. I want to be the kind of leader she is." This is the book. It's about history.
The other recruits who had witnessed the incident had also been profoundly affected by what they had seen. Many of them later described it as a defining moment in their understanding of military values and professionalism.
David Chen, who had recorded the original viral video, had gone on to complete his training with distinction and was pursuing a career in cybersecurity within the Navy.
Watching drill instructor Mitchell handle that situation taught me more about leadership and professionalism than any textbook could, David reflected.
She showed us what it means to be calm under pressure, to respond proportionally to threats, and to maintain your principles even when dealing with someone who doesn't respect you.
The video's impact extended far beyond the military community.
Self-defense instructors around the world had incorporated footage from Sarah's response into their training curricula, using it to demonstrate proper defensive techniques and the importance of remaining calm during confrontations.
Martial arts schools reported increased enrollment, particularly among women, who had been inspired by Sarah's example.
Corporate diversity and inclusion programs began using the video as a case study in professional behavior and workplace respect. Human resources departments incorporated discussions of the incident into their training on creating respectful work environments and addressing inappropriate behavior.
Educational institutions also found value in the video. Leadership programs at universities began using Sarah's response as an example of situational awareness, appropriate force escalation, and maintaining professionalism under pressure.
Psychology programs used it to discuss topics ranging from conflict resolution to the dynamics of respect and authority in professional relationships. The long-term impact on military recruitment was particularly significant. The video had generated unprecedented positive attention for women in military roles, leading to increased interest from young women considering military careers. Recruitment offices reported that the video had helped address many misconceptions about military service and had inspired a new generation of potential service members.
Admiral Patricia Hughes, who had become one of the most vocal supporters of Sarah's response, later testified before Congress about the importance of supporting women in military roles. She used the video as evidence of the professional competence and capability that female service members brought to their positions.
Drill instructor Mitchell's response represents the best of military training and professionalism, Admiral Hughes testified. Her actions demonstrate exactly why we need to continue expanding opportunities for women in all military roles, including combat positions. This isn't about politics or social engineering. It's about recognizing and utilizing the full range of talent and capability available to our military.
6 months after the incident, Sarah was promoted to senior drill instructor, a recognition of both her professional competence and her positive impact on military training culture. She continued to serve at Naval Station Great Lakes, where she had become something of a legend among new recruits who hoped to learn from the instructor who had become famous for her professionalism and skill.
Sarah had also begun speaking at military academies and leadership conferences, sharing her experiences and insights about military service, leadership, and maintaining professionalism in challenging situations. Her speeches consistently emphasized the importance of preparation, training, and maintaining one's principles regardless of the circumstances.
The incident that made me famous lasted 15 seconds, Sarah would tell audiences. But those 15 seconds were the result of years of training, preparation, and commitment to professional excellence. You can't fake competence, and you can't substitute aggression for skill. What you see in that video is simply the result of doing the work necessary to be ready when circumstances demand your best performance.
The video continued to circulate on social media, often resurging in popularity during discussions about military service, women's rights, or professional conduct.
Each time it gained new viewers, it sparked fresh conversations about respect, capability, and the importance of preparation in professional environments.
Perhaps most importantly, the incident had created a lasting change in military culture. The clear documentation of inappropriate behavior and its swift professional consequences had sent a powerful message throughout the military community. Reports of harassment and disrespectful behavior in training environments decreased significantly following the widespread circulation of the video, as potential offenders realized that their actions could have serious and very public consequences.
Sarah's story had evolved from a simple training ground incident into a powerful example of professional competence, appropriate response to aggression, and the importance of maintaining one's principles under pressure.
The viral video had not only showcased her individual skills and professionalism, but it also highlighted the broader capabilities and contributions of women in military service. Years later, military historians would point to Sarah Mitchell's response to Marcus Thompson as a pivotal moment in changing public perception of women in combat roles.
The incident provided clear, undeniable evidence of female competence in high-pressure situations and helped accelerate the military's evolution toward full gender integration in all roles.
The legacy of those 15 seconds on a training ground at Naval Station Great Lakes extended far beyond social media views or news coverage.
It had changed lives, influenced policy, and inspired a new generation of military service members who understood that respect, professionalism, and competence were not optional qualities but essential requirements for anyone who chose to serve their country in uniform. Sarah Mitchell had simply done her job the way she had been trained to do it.
But in doing so, she had created a lasting impact that would influence military culture, inspire countless individuals, and serve as a permanent reminder that true strength comes not from aggression or intimidation, but from skill, preparation, and unwavering professionalism in the face of any challenge.